Alrighty, so this is my second part of my game Earth Defense. So this part's going to be focusing on the rocks and the game over and congratulations screens here. So obviously with the rocks I needed them to move side to side and then down and then side to side then down, as was explained in my artifact on my website. So to do this I want them to go right, down, left, down, right, down, and so and so. So to do this I went, when the start button's clicked, show, which means they'll become visible. Now this switch costume part, I'll get to that in a sec because it actually has something to do with this little block here. So I wanted them to go to the X coordinate of 134 and Y of 71 because that's where I wanted them to start. Now you'll see each rock has a different X coordinate and Y coordinate because that's the different starting positions that I wanted them to be in. So they're all set up here. Now this next part here, repeat until touching turret. Now this is actually part of the game over thing. So it's going to basically repeat all of this code within this little part here until it's touching the turret. So until it gets down to there, it's going to keep doing all of these things. Now the first part here is the movement right, so right across the screen. So repeat until touching the edge, change X by 3. So changing the X by 3 by a +3 means it's going to go to the right hand side, all until it touches the edge here. So once it touches the edge, it'll move down to here and change the Y by -50, which is up and down. So -50 means it'll move down, and then change the X by -3 before it gets onto this next part. Now you'll see this if touching turret then broadcast game over. This is actually part of when it gets down to here. So I did the calculations, and once it's gone through all the way down, it'll actually be going right when it hits the turret, when it actually makes contact with the turret. So that's why I had to put this if broadcast turret then broadcast game over. Well, if touching turret then broadcast game over I should say, because it broadcasts a message, which I'll get to in a sec, which is in the game over part. So as I said before, change Y by -50, it goes down, and then repeat until touching edge, change X by -3. This is exactly the same as here, but it's just changing it by -3, which means it's going the opposite way. So it'll keep doing that until it touches the edge, then it'll change Y by -50, which means it'll go down again, change X by 3 to get it off the edge, and then repeat that script again, all the way until it goes down to there. I'll just show you an example of this. See how they're all going side to side, and then down, and to the right, and then down. Now I'll get to the game over section in a bit. Now this little part here, when the start flag is clicked, wait until touching the laser. So if you remember, our laser was our little bullet that gets shot. So wait until touching the laser and then switch costume. Now the costume you'll see in here, I had to draw my own little costume, so I draw some exploding rocks. So once it hits the laser, it'll change the costume to this, and then switch costume to exploding rocks, wait 0.3 of a second, then it'll change the score by 1, so the score will go up, and then it'll hide. So it'll go, once it hits the laser, it'll change to that costume, change the score, and then hide, and then stop this script, so it stops all the script together for it. So I'll just show you an example of that. See, once it gets hit, it changes and then hides, like so. Now that, you'll see the score went up by 3 there. That's actually a bit of coding that I put in the turret here. So once the start button's clicked, set the score to 0. So that was a variable here. I had to make my own variable, which is just rename the variable to score, and then score to 0. So that sets it to 0, and then show variable, which actually displays it up in this top left corner. Now you'll notice I've added this onto the code that I originally had from the first part. Now the next part here, which I added in, was this little forever loop here. So I initially didn't have this, I just had this part by itself, but I found out that it wouldn't actually execute this because it went through the code and it didn't sense it, so I had to forever it, so it kept going over and over again. So if score is greater than 9, so if the score is greater than 9, that was an operator here. I just had a greater than, and then I grabbed the variable score and dragged that into the little green box. If it's greater than 9, it'll broadcast this message here. Now you'll see I got two different messages here. Now when this broadcast happens, it's a little event tab here. It actually sends out a message to basically everything in the game, and if they pick up that message, then they'll do something. So in this instance here, the congratulations you win, that's actually on my congratulations you win sprite here. So I had to make a new sprite, and I just went paint and typed in the text congratulations you win. So with this, it's pretty straightforward coding. Once the start button's clicked, it'll actually hide itself, so it's hidden now. But once it receives the congratulations you win, it'll actually show itself. So it receives that broadcast message, and then it will show our sprite. So I'll just run through an example of that. Once I get rid of all of these, once I defeat all the rocks, it'll actually display the message. Now just bear with me for a sec while I get all these. So it detected the score was 10, and then it displayed the congratulations you win. Now that was the game, basically, once you win. But what if the rocks made it all the way down to the bottom? What happens then? So remember that little code here I had from when they go down and across? You'll just wait and see. Once they go down, they're a bit slow, but once if the player doesn't get them for whatever reason, they make it all the way down. You'll see right here, see it's about to make contact. Boom, game over. So once they make contact with the turret, so that's the if touching turret, then broadcast game over, then the game is over and the player has lost. And yeah, that's basically the game. It's quite looks a bit complex when at first, but once you go through it in steps, then it's quite a simple sort of game, just moving left to right. Now, as I said before, this switch costume to rocks, that just makes sure so like if you start it again, it'll switch back the costume from the exploding rocks to go back to the normal rocks, just at the start here. So before I had that, it would just be basically the rocks would stay as that exploding rock sort of costume, and they'd start the game over again and they'd still be that costume, which wasn't ideal. So yeah, that's my game.